What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. And the New York Giants, if you're looking ahead to the 2025 offseason, depending on how you felt about Daniel Jones, regardless of how you felt, honestly, you got to take away one positive. The Giants freed up $19 million in salary cap space, and now they have a nice amount of money to spend in the upcoming offseason if they choose to do so. This past offseason, the Giants saw two star players leave in free agency. They watched Saquon Barkley walk out of the door, take the turnpike down to Philadelphia, and now he's an MVP candidate for the Eagles. They also watched Xavier McKinney walk out of the door, take a plane ride over to Green Bay. Now he's in Wisconsin as a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. Really tough losses for the New York Giants, but those losses were caused ultimately by a lack of salary cap space, with the seventh highest salary cap hit for any player tied to Daniel Jones in the 2024 season. I think it was a $47 million cap hit. Again, top 10 among all players in the league. Did not get top 10 production out of the guy, that's for damn sure. And now he's gone. He's no longer with the New York Giants. But with him being released, the Giants did free up a lot of salary cap space. So hopefully this upcoming offseason, if there are any free agents that they really like, or if there's any players who could potentially depart the team, they have a little bit more money to keep those guys in-house or to bring in some new talents from the outside in, which is very important, especially for a team that's 2-10, eliminated from the playoffs, the first team to be eliminated, needing to rebuild. Of course, you always want to rebuild through the draft, Alex, but adding some talent through free agency, bringing in some established veteran starters is always an important piece of the puzzle, especially in a few key areas of the Giants' weakness, like in the secondary. Veteran experience, very important, and on the offensive line, also important to have veteran experience, and that's why it's so important for the New York Giants to have a solid amount of salary cap space, which again, they opened up a bunch for this upcoming offseason by releasing Daniel Jones, but they also have a few other key ways to create even more salary cap space. And on top of all that, they already just have a ton sitting there ready for them, and they can make it grow even larger, which is really exciting. So it should be a great offseason. I know it's a little mundane, it's a little boring talking about how bad the Giants are week in or day in and day out, but by the time we get to the end of the season, there's going to be so much to talk about. There's going to be so many different free agents to break down, and it's going to be a lot of exciting topics on the channel. But Alex, how are you doing today, my friend? And I know that you did a little bit of a deep dive on the Giants' salary cap health this morning. Tell us what you learned. Share with us what you discovered in the numbers on the salary cap, on over the cap and spot rack, all of that fun stuff. And why are you so excited about the plans that the New York Giants could formulate this upcoming offseason?
Well, excited might be a lofty term, but I'll say this. When it comes to Joe Schoen, the one thing I do think he did a fine job of is rebuilding the salary cap space. That way we have flexibility for the future and locking down some of our best players. Now, I wish he would have brought back McKinney. Saquon's a whole different story. I think Saquon would have made sense if they would have franchise tagged Daniel Jones instead, but obviously giving him that big deal, they couldn't pay him in the running back position. So, McKinney bringing him back would have been great, but obviously we have to deal with what we have at our disposal right now. So the Giants have about $60.28 million available in 2025 at their disposal. Let's assume they need about $10 million for the rookie draft class, because they're going to be picking in the top two most likely, so they're going to be spending a lot of money on their first round pick. Then they have second round, third round, they have all their draft picks basically. So you're looking at about a $10 million expense right off the bat from the draft. But the best part about this, Anthony, the best part about this $10 million investment in the draft is you're getting a rookie quarterback who's going to cost you next to nothing long term, especially if they pan out. Now, every single mock draft I've been reading recently from big NFL analysts has the Giants taking Shedeur Sanders just because of their obvious interest in him. They think he's a good fit for Brian Daboll's system. We'll see how that goes. We don't know. We also love Cam Ward. We've discussed this back and forth, and we'll continue to do so until the draft in April. But that $50 million minus, obviously, that includes the $10 million you're taking off from the draft, is a nice chunk of money, because you still are paying Daniel Jones $22 million in dead money in 2025. The Giants decided, well, we don't want to cut him as a post-June 1st designation, because we want to take on all that dead money now in the first year of our conceived rookie quarterback on that new contract, which would be a 5-year deal with the fifth-year option. So looking at the Giants' salary situation, they said, you know what, let's take on the brunt of that dead money. Let's not spread it out between 2 years, because we don't want to go heavily into free agency next year. What we want to do is make some key upgrades at specific positions and then use that time, use that money in 2026 to really go hard and upgrade this roster around a quarterback going into their sophomore year, which is, usually the year that players tend to take off, and you can kind of compound on that initial success, right? Like the Denver Broncos, for example, got Bo Nix. They're like, we love Bo Nix. Next offseason, they're going to reinforce that team with a ton of possible free agents and different guys. You see it across the league. How many guys? Caleb Williams, they spent a lot of money around him. As a rookie, but they'll have more money next year as well. Obviously you look at Drake May and the Patriots. They're going to be a big free agency spender this upcoming offseason. Jaden Daniels and the Commanders, lots of money to go around there as well. So that's what the teams traditionally do. They keep costs down in the first year of the rookie contract. They make big expenses and big acquisitions in year two. The Giants and Joe Schoen have actually positioned themselves to do something quite similar to that. Where they have the dead money of Daniel Jones' contract being eaten in 2025 at $22 million. Then they're able to flip that into, okay, now we have an additional freed up $22 million in additional money in 2026. So just looking at over the cap right now, I would say that in 2026, you're looking at what they have is $142 million in cap space. That's the number. They still have Andrew Thomas under contract, Brian Burns under contract, Bobby Okereke under contract. They still have Dexter Lawrence under contract. Like, they still have a lot of players on this team still under contract. And that's really important that the top guys, they're really just talking about filling it out with draft. So 2025 draft, 2026 draft, that's going to allocate a lot of depth, a lot of starting talent. So you basically have this roster with the key superstar players on it, like Thomas, Andrew Phillips, we hope Andrew Phillips, more like Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, and then, of course, Malik Neighbors, who's still on his rookie contract. He's only going into year 3 at that point. So this team is kind of positioned well to spend big in the future. The question is, and where my biggest qualm with Joe Schoen has been, it's not about how he built the cap space, how he smoothed it out, cleaned it up. It's where he's allocated the money. It's what positions he's prioritized. It's the players he's signed. A lot of them have not done much, right? We love Bobby Okereke. He's been great. Not so much a great fit in this system with Shane Bowen. He was much better last year. He's still a fine player, but I definitely think the losing has taken a toll on everyone's effort. So I'll give him a little bit of slack there. But first and foremost, the Giants have to address 2 spots. These are, bar none, the most important. Cornerback to reinforce the secondary, and a competent swing tackle. Because the Giants can no longer go into the future with ass at depth on the offensive line. Evan Neal has to be moved into guard. They could draft somebody to maybe be an offset there, but I like a veteran that you can get a cheap veteran swing tackles at nominal costs these days, unless you have a different solution.
I do. I'm surprised that those were the 2 positions that you immediately addressed, because I think the number one that they need to address in free agency is the quarterback position. The Giants are obviously going to be picking at the top of the draft, and yes, they need to draft a quarterback. We've been over this 1,000 times. That's likely the way this is going. But they also need to bring in a solid starting veteran quarterback to be maybe a bridge or a long-term solution. What did the Vikings think they were getting with Sam Darnold, Alex? They thought they were getting a 1-year bridge quarterback on a 1-year, $10 million deal. What did they get? A potential franchise quarterback. Why don't the Giants take a similar chance on a bridge fringe starter quarterback this offseason? Now, obviously, you have to hope that there's one out there for you, but there are some names that have some intrigue. Justin Fields stands out as a potential guy who has plenty of starting experience, led the Steelers to a winning record this season prior to being removed from the lineup in favor of Russell Wilson, the better and more experienced player. But he's still a quality talent, Justin Fields. He can win games. And if you're talking about him as a bridge, a starter for the first half of the season before a rookie takes over, perfect. And that is the number one position that I would address. Yes, you are right. The Giants need to add talent. They need a swing tackle, a competent player who can play both sides of the offensive line, play as a good depth piece. That is of the utmost importance. But on top of that, you got to get a quarterback in that backfield. There has to be somebody. Like the fact that the Giants rolled into the season with just Daniel Jones and Drew Lock and Tommy DeVito, it was an egregious error. They didn't address quarterback in the draft. They didn't even take one in the middle rounds, which again, I think is another egregious error. But the fact that they just gave a $4 million contract to Drew Lock, a player that they knew wasn't seriously going to push Daniel Jones for the starting job, despite Jones struggling last year and coming off of a torn ACL, that was one of Joe Schoen's biggest mistakes in the last 365 days. And that's saying a lot because the guy's made a bunch of big mistakes in the last 365 days. But that happened to be one of the biggest ones. And so this offseason, they don't need to go out there and make some big splash and trade for Stafford or try and acquire Kirk Cousins. Just get somebody who you think can start at least 10 solid games for you this upcoming season. Somebody who's legitimately good enough to do that and win at least 6 of them, right? Winning record in 10 games. If you gave a quarterback a 10-game sample size, could he win the majority of those games or not? If you ask me, could Drew Lock win the majority of a 10-game sample size in the offseason? I tell you, probably not. But Sam Darnold, maybe. You guys remember how high I was on him in the offseason. I thought there was still something on lock there with a good coach. And now we're seeing that with the Vikings. The Giants need to find their version of that. They need to find a veteran free agent quarterback who they feel in a 10-game sample size can win more than 5 of those games.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you make a good point. Quarterback obviously is up there as well. More so importantly, I was thinking about the future of just keeping your rookie quarterback healthy and also addressing a really big weakness in the secondary. So, like, these are...
A bridge quarterback does that, though. Keeps your rookie
Of
healthy.
course. He does. More so, like, I'm thinking about a perennial issue for this Giants team. So, like, we're both right in this instance. Quarterback needs to be addressed in a bridge. Cornerback also, we need another veteran leader in there, and a swing tackle would be great too, because all those things are important pieces that the Giants have lacked significantly over the past few years, mostly this year with the backup quarterback situation that we have going on. But the names that I really like, and it's going to cost you a pretty penny to get a veteran corner. I think, the top names being Byron Murphy, Shavarius Ward, and DJ Reed are the big guys. Carlton Davis also is up there. I would love DJ Reed. He is a CB1. He would be a perfect veteran. Perfect to pair with Deontay Banks. The Jets are in absolute disarray. I think they're going to let some pieces go. They still have Rodgers. It's just a disaster over there. I mean, it's possible Reed stays, but if he does leave, what better to just stay in his current home and join the Giants and not have to move anywhere. Just stay exactly where you are, get paid, and stay in New York City. Like, that's exactly, if he was going to move, that's the exact transition that you'd probably prefer. DJ Reed is a leader in that locker room. He's an experienced quality veteran, and he's still young. And he'd be a perfect player next to Deontay Banks, can take the pressure off of him and help him improve and keep him confident. That combination between McKinney and Banks was so important, and losing that, as you've seen Banks's mentality, his effort, his everything about him has been way off this season. He lost his running mate, you know what I mean? So I do think they need to bring in someone who can replicate that. And I think DJ Reed is a perfect fit in that regard. Shavarius Ward could also be a guy like that. I'm not sure exactly his character, but I do know DJ Reed just because I have a lot of Jets friends. They love him.
Shavarius Ward is one of the highest character players in the NFL.
There you go. So
if you
either
were watching
guys.
Sunday Night Football, his My Cause, My Cleats, high character. He would be a
Awesome,
tremendous addition, not only to the Giants' defensive lineup, but also to their locker room. I would love to have
That's
him.
great. And what's better about, either way, you might have a shot at both. Shavarius Ward, there's no way the 49ers extend him. They give so much money to Ayuk. Like, they don't have a ton of money to spend. It's possible they could extend him, but we'll see what happens. I think one of those two guys shake out, and the Giants have to be the top bidder for those two. They need a veteran in that locker room so badly in the secondary to galvanize that unit. The offensive line, still in disarray. I would love to bring back Greg Van Roten on a minimum contract, be your depth utility piece, draft a guard maybe, or try to get any value out of Evan Neal. Maybe he becomes something. I don't know. I like Jermaine Illuminor as starting right tackle. I think he's a good player. You have him under contract for one more year. Let him play that out. Maybe you draft someone like the third or fourth round to develop, see what happens. There's things you can do here. The Giants can solve these problems, but it has come to a point where the egregious amount of failure they've experienced in the offensive line, the lack of depth to supplement injury, they're basically just waiting for someone to get hurt for the entire offensive line to completely just drop into the abyss every season. They can't keep going like this. They need to have a competent swing tackle. They have to. The time is over for them to wait on this again. So they got, and Andrew Thomas is injury prone. I think it's fair to say that he's injury prone at this point in his career. They need to bring in someone who's competent, can be a good swing tackle. Maybe you draft the top offensive tackle in the second round. That's your swing tackle for the time being, and then maybe he assumes a starting role down the road. Maybe that's something that you do. So, at this point in time, Giants have money to spend. I think they'll make one big upgrade in the offensive, rather than the secondary. They'll get a nominal cost swing tackle, and they'll invest in a backup quarterback bridge for 1 year. That's how I kind of see them spending. 2026, they have a bunch of money come off the books. That backup quarterback comes off the books, theoretically. You could find another guy that's a little bit cheaper because now you have, your guy in Sanders or Ward or whoever as the primary starter. And you're able to walk into a situation where you have a stupendous amount of money, young draft pieces, lots of players on young rookie contracts, and you're able to really upgrade this roster in free agency and build around a rookie quarterback like other teams do.
Yeah, that'd be tremendous. That's the ideal way of doing it. Do I have confidence that that's how the Giants will get it done? Probably not. But I will say, I think one minor detail that you threw in there was a bridge quarterback on a 1 year deal. And I'm going to argue I would like to see the Giants sign a bridge quarterback on a 2 year deal, if possible. And it might not be because a lot of the bridge quarterbacks prefer to sign 1 year contracts so that if they do play well, they can cash in immediately the next year. Don't have to worry about a 2 season sample size potentially ruining their payday. Again, like looking at Sam Darnold, he's a prime example right now. On a 1 year deal, he's going to get paid a shit ton next year. Had he signed a 2 year deal and in the second season of that contract he didn't play as well, he doesn't get as much money. So it's a kind of tough to sign players to a 2 year contract, but if you could pay a little bit more to get that bridge under contract for 2 seasons, I think that does a lot to open up the flexibility in your roster building, Alex, to where if you do feel good about this bridge quarterback, you can probably skip on a quarterback in the first round and keep building out the rest of your roster. Not saying that they should or shouldn't do that one way or another. Only argument that I'm making here, guys, is that signing a bridge quarterback to a multi-year contract just gives you multiple years to build the roster and prepare for a rookie quarterback. And not only build and prepare to draft a rookie quarterback, because you could still sign the bridge quarterback to a 2 year deal, draft the quarterback, but you just don't have any time that you need to rush this quarterback into the lineup, especially if you've got that bridge on a 2 year deal. Imagine the bridge quarterback takes you to the playoffs in year one. Well, now in year two, he's going to be your starter, and that rookie that you drafted the following year just gets to keep sitting, learning, and growing. Think about Jordan Love and the way that he sat for a while before eventually taking over. It's happened many, many times with quarterbacks all across the league. The longer that you can give that quarterback time to acclimate himself with the NFL game, oftentimes is the better. I always say this, Alex, if you look at all of the top quarterbacks in the NFL, name the 10 best in the league, I bet you at least 8 of them were not starters in week 1 of their rookie season. Think about Mahomes, he sat for an entire year. You think about Lamar Jackson, sat for 8 weeks. You think about Josh Allen, sat behind Tyrod Taylor for a while. Even Justin Herbert sat behind Tyrod Taylor. The bridge quarterback is just so important to me. I think it is of the utmost importance for the Giants to address that. And I know that you agree with me. Not arguing against your point or anything. I'm just saying I would love if the Giants found a quality bridge quarterback that they felt like could be a decent starter for them for 2 seasons if need be, just to make sure you don't have to rush that rookie in at all. You can take your absolute time and just wait for the perfect opportunity to inject him into the lineup and keep building that roster around him. But I will say, Alex, like you mentioned, a lot of these free agents, and there are a bunch of great targets out there, especially in the secondary. You're looking at this cornerback group that's available in free agency. You mentioned that Charvarius Ward, DJ Reed, Carlton Davis even. He's a little bit of an aging veteran. He's going to be 28 years old next season, but still playing at a very high level for the Detroit Lions. Could be a great addition to the locker room and to the lineup. There's a bunch of players out there. Russell Douglas for the Bills is even pretty solid. Byron Murphy for the Vikings has been good this year. There's so many names as you go through this list. I even like Eric Stokes of Green Bay is a decent player, and Christian Fulton for LA. He's had some good seasons in the past. So much talent out there. But will the Giants maximize it? Will they actually take advantage of the free agency pool this time? Because, Alex, I feel like in the last 2 years under Joe Schoen, they haven't done that either offseason rather. Instead, they go to the trade market. So maybe it would be interesting. We might have to look around and see what cornerbacks could potentially be available via trade, because that seems to be the way that Joe Schoen likes to roll. He seems to prefer to take players who maybe could be free agents, or you trade for them before they hit free agency. That seems to be the way that he rolls, and then he hands contracts to those guys instead. So I'd be curious to see if there are any cornerbacks or secondary pieces that might end up on the trade block this upcoming offseason. If we start to hear any of that chatter, like we heard with Marshawn Lattimore midseason, obviously, we knew that guy was going to a contender. He was ready to compete, and the Saints wanted to give him to a team and give back to him. So he went to the Commanders, which sucks for the Giants. Commanders got even better. But this offseason, will there be another cornerback who's like, you know what? I want out. I'm ready to move on. Maybe the Giants go that route and trade for somebody. But I think that really is just a great way to summarize everything that we've discussed in this episode, Alex, and mention the Giants have flexibility this offseason, whether they want to trade, whether they want to address quarterback, cornerback, tackle. All of it will be available to them because of the $60 million in projected salary cap space that they have, plus the ability to grow that number even further if they want to restructure any of their contracts and cut any of their players and make more deals to open up more cap space. So, Alex, any closing thoughts on the New York Giants as we do take this early look ahead to the free agency period as they sit with a boatload of money, hopefully, to spend in the offseason?
Yeah, I mean, the last thing I could say is, let's see who ends up spending it. Is it going to be Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll, or is it going to be somebody else? The salary cap situation it looks more promising than the roster construction does, but it's about how you spend the money, right? Like that's been the problem for Joe Schoen. He's managed to create a lot of money for himself to spend. He just hasn't spent it properly. And that's a big problem, right? Like you need to be able to build a team while also opening up money and positioning yourself to sign good contracts. Like Dexter Lawrence's contract is absolutely brilliant, right? A brilliant contract. He's making way under market value because they signed him prematurely. So, these are things that he's done, that Schoen has done good, but it's what he did with the money that was horrible at a lot of times. And, at this point, I'd like to stay away from trades. Why? Because he's given up our draft capital for guys and letting other people walk that are important to this team. So I do think that at the moment, I prefer him to spend money in free agency than go and try to get creative with trades. He's gotten really ballsy with these trades, and it hasn't worked out so far. And I do think that right now he needs to just spend money, because now, he couldn't really do that in the past as much as he might have wanted because of Daniel Jones. That contract completely strapped him in a lot of ways. So now that money is going to be off the books in 26, and he'll have more money to spend then. So, assuming he's even here, it's a lot of what ifs right now. The one thing that we can say is you build around a rookie quarterback, but you still have to hit on the quarterback first, man. Like we're assuming, like you got to build around this guy, got to do this, got to do that. You got to hit on the damn quarterback first, and that's the most important thing. Like you see Bo Nix, like he's doing excellent stuff right now at Denver. He's fallen into a great system, a great situation. The Giants have not proven they have a good situation or a good system. Like they have to solidify these things. They need to galvanize that locker room, not just the locker room, dude, but the coaching staff. The coaching staff looks. How many of these guys are dying to get out of there, right? Like Mike Kafka was held hostage last year. They wouldn't let him leave. So I think that we're going to see a lot of overturn. If Brian Dable and Joe Schoen aren't fired, I'd be willing to bet that Shane Bowen's gone, Mike Kafka's gone. A couple of those coaches are going to be on the way out, need to be replaced, and they need to bring in guys who are going to help establish a system that works well with a rookie quarterback and help a defense that is clearly lacking aggression. They need to be more aggressive. That's what their style was last year. They need to have a healthy balance, blitzing, being aggressive, more packages that involve sending some DBs and getting creative. And, not Wink Martindale's even is a little bit too extreme for me, but somewhere in the middle. And I think they're too conservative right now, and it's hurting them in a lot of ways.
It's very funny how the Giants were on one end of the extreme of the spectrum, and then they swung all the way to the other end of the spectrum. They just couldn't find that way in the middle. Went from uber aggressive to uber conservative. Got to find a marriage in the middle there. That's going to be their mission on the defensive side of the ball this offseason. But Alex, last thing that I'll say to summarize pretty much everything we said, if the Giants do this, and then if they do that, and if they can make that work, and if they can make this work, then maybe if this all happens, then they can be a winning football team. It's a lot of ifs, like you said. If, then, but, whatever, however, whoever. It's going to be a long, winding road this offseason, but it should be exciting. Should be a lot of fun to break down all the different prospects, free agency acquisitions, and coaching staff changes, maybe even front office changes. Much to discuss we have on Fireside Giants. It's going to be fun, so make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts down below in the comment section. Listen on Apple or Spotify. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Go and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. Without further ado, catch you all in the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.
Perfect.